Hey folks, welcome to another day, another unboxing. What I've got here today is Xiaomi's 11T Pro. Yes, the Pro version of the phone that I recently unboxed. The Xiaomi 11T. These phones are identical other than two things. One is the processor used. The 11T has a MediaTek Dimensity 1200. And this Pro version has a Snapdragon 888. The other difference is the charging speed. The 11T supports 67 watt charging. This Pro model supports 120 watt charging. I'm going to repeat this. 120 watt charging. Yes, folks, that's 0 to 100% in 17 minutes. Are you grasping that? Is it sinking in? Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But other than that, these two phones are identical. Same camera, same chassis, same everything, same display. So let's have a quick look at this phone and we'll go from there. All right, here's the box. As you can see, it's identical to the previous box. There we go. All right, let's open this up. Dun, 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 dun. We got Xiaomi here, a little divider. Here is the phone. And it says 108 megapixel pro grade camera, which is, doesn't have OIS, so not pro grade in my book. Here's that crazy 120 watt hypercharge charging, 120 hertz AMOLED display with Dolby Vision, 10-bit, really great display, same as the other one. Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 instead of MediaTek Dimensity 1200. So I'll put this aside and we'll go digging for the rest of the stuff, and this is where it gets interesting. Check out that crazy charger. It is huge. Look at it next to the phone. It's the size of half the phone. Yeah, so if you want to carry this brick around, you'll be able to super fast charge it. It's also pretty heavy. So it has the usual Xiaomi orange keying, which means you have to use it with the extra thick high current cable here. Yes, you can use this with another cable, you just won't get the maximum speed. And yes, you can use another charger with this cable, but you still won't get the maximum speed. That's how it works. So 120 watt charger right there, and then we've got this cable here, which is USB-A on one end and C on the other end. As you can see, pretty standard fare. But again, you have to use this cable together with this charger if you want the maximum speed. Of course, the phone still supports PD at lower speeds and whatever, but that's not what you're interested in. All right, let's have a look at this here real quick. You've got SIM removal tool, some documentation, and of course a case. This is exactly the same setup as before. Warranty card, we don't care. We've got Xiaomi 11 Pro safety information, don't care. And then here's the start guide, and that is exactly the same as on the 11T. As you can see, it shows you how to use the SIM card, all that stuff. All right, so now we've got a TPU case. That's nice to have. It's a standard Xiaomi deal to get you started. Fits well. These age pretty well. They don't get too yellow over time, so it's nice to have. And that, folks, is what's in the box. Let's move to the phone. All right, I'm going to remove this from its case. And look at that, it started. All right, there's an IMEI sticker back here, so I'm going to peel that off as well. So let's talk about this display real quick. This is a 1080p display. It's 6.67 inches across, and of course 120 hertz, 1000 nits peak brightness, 800 nits average, and Dolby Vision support, and of course 10-bit. This is a pretty awesome display. So there's a little bit of a chin, as I mentioned before, on the Mi 11T. It's the same exact package, so you're getting the same front-facing camera as well. It's a 16 megapixel f/2.5 1 micron pixel camera. Nothing too spectacular here. So yeah, same display, same camera. Now under the hood, you get a Snapdragon 888. And the storage options are similar to the 11T, which means you get 128 gigs of storage with 8 gigs of RAM, or 256 gigs of storage and 8 gigs of RAM, or a third tier, which is 256 gigs of storage and 12 gigs of RAM. So that's actually a little upgrade over the 11T. Now, there's the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery under the hood, and as I mentioned, you do get 120 watt charging instead of 67 watt charging, which is kind of crazy. Now, speaking of a back here, let's look at those cameras. Again, the same camera as the 11T here. So you've got a 108 megapixel f/1.8 main camera with 0.7 micron pixels. It pixel bins 9:1, so you get 12 megapixel photos out of that. And you get an 8 megapixel f/2.2 ultra wide with 1.12 micron pixels. That has a 120 degree field of view. And then finally you have a 5 megapixel f/2.4 1.12 micron macro that has autofocus, which is welcome on a macro. But again, it's not a spectacular camera system by any means. The lack of OIS is definitely a big bummer. I mean, the Mi 11 earlier this year had OIS on its 108 megapixel main sensor. So you got LED flash, you got also a laser autofocus module there. Again, this is the same color, same chassis. So, you know, Xiaomi says this is a metal frame, but it's not. It's a plastic frame with a metal underneath, right? So you don't have any antenna bands. You can see this is plastic. It's this kind of matte finish. You got the volume rocker here and the power lock key, which has an embedded fingerprint sensor. Again, it's not in the display, even though this is an AMOLED panel. And then you've got, you know, a speaker, USB Type-C here, primary microphone, and the slim slot. Now, there is no micro SD support for this phone. That's again the same as the 11T. And here's the left-hand side. Again, just as you can see, it's a sea of plastic. Like, there is no antenna bands. This is matte plastic. It's quality stuff, but it's still plastic. On top here, you have a second speaker, which is essentially a resonator for the earpiece. So you get stereo audio, which is nice. And you get an infrared transmitter here for remote control purposes. Pretty cool stuff. And as you can see here, it says Harman Kardon. And there we go. So that's what the speakers are. That's actually pretty great because the Mi 11 speakers sounded fantastic. So now you'll notice that there's a bit of a kind of a shiny insert at the bottom and a shiny flat insert at the top that look like glass, but I think it's just plastic that's shiny versus the matte on the frame. So that's basically it, folks. That's the Xiaomi 11T Pro. It's basically the same phone as the Xiaomi 11T. The only difference being the 120 watt charging and the Snapdragon 888. You can see they look identical. You can see that they're very similar, same displays and everything. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this quick unboxing of a Xiaomi 11T Pro. This is an interesting phone, especially for its fast charging capabilities, 120 watts. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the notification bell below. Tell me in the comments, which one would you buy, the Xiaomi 11T or the Xiaomi 11T Pro? And how do you feel about this? It seems like slightly decontented for a T-series phone from Xiaomi. Usually you get OIS, you get a metal frame on these phones, even though they're more affordable than the 11 or the numbered phone that came earlier in the year. So I'm a little surprised by the decision Xiaomi's made here. Still, it's a pretty good looking phone, right? So yeah, don't forget that this channel is a complement to my podcast at mobiletechpodcast.com. So please subscribe and tell your friends about the podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. And remember, there's a Patreon. If you want exclusive video content, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. We'll see you there. And folks, stay tuned for the next video. Until then, cheers everybody.